And here's the thing, the sad part is that patients are uninformed, right? So that's why people are suffering. I get emails from people that are like, I've been struggling for 10 years with my thyroid problem. And let me just say this very declaratively. There are only two reasons why anyone suffers for years.
Welcome back to another episode of the Peak Performance Life podcast. Today, I am very excited to have Elle Russ. She is a #1 bestselling author and master coach. She's a world-renowned thyroid health expert and thought leader on confidence. Now, thyroid is something extremely important, something that goes undiagnosed a lot, and something that we actually have not talked about on this podcast. And frankly, I listen to a lot of health podcasts and I don't hear anyone really talking much about it. And it's such a huge issue. So I'm so excited to dive into this. Elle is the author of Confident as F and the Paleo Thyroid Solution. Sorry, I didn't want to curse there. Just since we normally don't on the podcast, I don't know if iTunes is going to de-rank me for cursing. So I'll just leave it as Confident as F as the book, and the Paleo Thyroid Solution, a book which has helped thousands of people around the world reclaim their health. She is a paleo and ancestral expert, and she has some amazing knowledge. Thank you so much, Elle, for joining us here today.
Hi, so glad to be here. And I'll keep it Disney friendly and I won't use my terrible downtown Chicago mouth.
It's a catchy book title, but yeah, that's
No, we'll keep it non-swearing, this one.
awesome. Well, let's start off with a little bit of a background about yourself. How did you become kind of so interested in thyroid, in ancestral and paleo health, and how'd you get to where you are today?
I think like a lot of people who are experts on subjects regarding health or that are out there as health influencers or, coaches, it's because they suffered from something. I mean, that is, like one of my friends cured herself of MS and she wrote a book about it, so when what you realize though, is when you are suffering from any disease, and this is my overall message to everybody, no matter what it is, when you're diagnosed with something, you better learn all you can about it, because you are putting your health into the hands of a doctor who might actually be uninformed. You might learn something that will help them help you. And this is called the practice of medicine. And so if you know enough, you might be able to help your doctor help you by allowing them to sort of practice medicine with you. So the #1 mistake everyone makes, and the #1 mistake I made back then too, when I was suffering, was I just went to a bunch of doctors and was like listening to what they had to say, and they all didn't know what they were talking about. They tested me incorrectly, blah, 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 kept me sick. And so what happened is I suffered for about 7 years of my 30s. I had over 30 of 40 thyroid symptoms. I was absolutely debilitated. And I went to over 24 endocrinologist doctors, spoke with half of them, met them in person. Nobody figured it out. I mean, I would like go to a famous hormone doctor in Beverly Hills, California, that was on some celebrity's book, and go to them, and it would cost me $600 just to like get a test, but then they wouldn't know how to treat it. And so again, here I was stuck and I was suffering, and I got to this point where I was like, if I can't figure this out, I've never been suicidal in my life. But I had this moment of like, if I can't figure this out at some point, I'm going to have to start thinking about it, because I'm not going to live this way, because every waking moment is horrific. So what happened is I ended up taking my health into my own hands. I literally became my own doctor. I would get my own blood work. I ended up ordering my own thyroid hormones over the internet. Look, this is not something I suggest people do, but I had to do it. And there's a lot of people around the world who have no choice. I had to save my own life. And I did. I fixed it, and it actually wasn't difficult. So that made me nuts. Why did I go to 24 endocrinologists and experts in Los Angeles? I had the best insurance, and nobody could help me, when this is actually one of the most easily solvable situations. So, people will come to me because I've been coaching people all over the world. It doesn't matter if it's Saudi Arabia, Brazil, or Australia. It is the same story of doctors being steeped in 1973 outdated thyroid protocols. They don't know what they're doing, and they're keeping patients sick and essentially mistreating them. And so this was just really awful to know. Like, I have a philosophy degree. I shouldn't know more than most doctors about thyroid, but I do. You know, I
Mm,
even had an MD email me the other day and said, by the way, I've watched 100 of your interviews and I tell everyone to buy your book. But what I also tell them is she's not a doctor, but she knows more than most doctors, including myself. Now that's a good doctor. That's a
mhm,
doctor who doesn't have it wrapped up in ego. That's a
mm,
doctor who goes, you know what? There is someone that I don't know enough about this and my patients aren't doing well here. So maybe I do need to look elsewhere. So that's what you want. You want the doctor that's still geeking out on trying to find problems instead of being a part of an insurance network going 15 minutes pill or surgery, 15 minutes, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So it really was the result of my own perseverance and fixing myself that I accidentally became a thyroid expert. You know, I mean,
Mm,
I'm a comedy writer initially. You know, I'm still a writer and I write books. So this was not something that I ever desired. It's something that I was compelled to do based on my personal experience.
wow. Wow. Um, Amazing story. I'm also a paleo enthusiast like you. I've seen so many people sort of heal themselves with paleo ancestral type of diets. But let's talk about thyroid. What is like, how do people even know? Because I imagine there's so many people that are undiagnosed. Maybe let's start with kind of like, what is the thyroid, I guess, and what are some kind of side effects that people may not even realize they have a thyroid issue,
Mm.
but they're having all these kind of symptoms and no one can figure out what it is.
Right. So let's just talk about the thyroid gland right away. So for you, the
Mhm.
thyroid gland is below your Adam's apple if you're a
Okay.
man, okay? But it's at
Hmm.
the base of my neck. So if anyone's watching this video, they can see where I'm pointing to. It's this butterfly-shaped gland here. Now,
Uh-huh.
it's the master gland of the human body, not because I said so. It just is. You could look it
Mm,
up online. Why is it the master gland? Okay, so let me tell you what it does. It is 100% in charge of the production and regulation of all of your sex hormones, your heart rate, your blood pressure, and your body temperature. Okay, now,
wow.
so let's say it's like one in a megajillion that people are rarely born without a thyroid gland, but let's just say a child was born without a thyroid gland. Mental disabilities will immediately set in and even death if it's not caught right away. Okay.
Mm,
Because again, this goes to the development of our brains, bodies, and everything else. It is the master. So let's say so you can't live without a thyroid gland. AKA the hormones that it dispenses. You cannot technically live without thyroid hormones. If your gland was removed, let's say, because of thyroid cancer, great. Then you just give the person the thyroid hormones that the gland now is not there to provide. So if that person, though, who got their thyroid gland removed because of thyroid cancer got caught on a stranded island, they're going to be the first ones to die.
wow.
So if you cannot live without a thyroid gland or AKA these thyroid hormones, what do you think life's going to be like when you have subpar levels? It literally is an accelerated aging, slowly dying process. So here's what happens. Things start to break down. So in males, your testosterone would drop. And then the dumb doctor goes, oh, we'll just give you testosterone without testing your thyroid, without testing the master gland to go, let's test the thing that's responsible for this, because a 25-year-old shouldn't have low testosterone. So what happens is you end up having all these symptoms, and there's literally 40 listed in my book, even on my website. I have a free thyroid guide, lists all these things. I had literally like 30 of the 40. For women and in general, these are the ones that classically come up to start. Usually it's body temperature. You're freezing all the time. And you
Mm,
know who you are because you're the one that's in summer that's always cold and no one else is cold. Now, that doesn't mean that you should have boiling hot hands and feet. Okay. So, we all sometimes have cooler hands and feet. That's not it. It's this internal chill. And it actually would be discoverable via temperature. So when I was hypothyroid, I could not get above 96 degrees all day long. Okay.
wow.
So 98.6 is what normal humans are. We're Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold, right? We have a basal temperature window, about 97.7 to 98.2. And then in the afternoon, we're 98.6. Does that mean if you're 98.5, you have a problem? No. But when we're talking the difference between 96 and
Mhm.
98.6, that's a huge difference, right? So
Yeah.
body temperature. The other one is inability to lose weight. Now, it's
Mm,
very rare. It's very rare that someone doesn't have a weight issue with hypothyroidism, but it can happen. Usually it's insidious weight gain
mm,
because, and I'll get into why that in a minute. So insidious weight gain, hair falling out, any kind of hormonal issues, infertility, miscarriages. This is why you should
mm,
never get pregnant without checking the thyroid. Um, Any other gynecological issues? I was misdiagnosed one time with polycystic ovarian syndrome, anything gynecological, and same with guys. So again, low testosterone, not getting erections in the morning, low recovery from exercise, poor sleep. That's how it would affect you guys. Brain fog. So people throw that word around a lot, but let me just describe what it is for those that might not know. Everybody in their life has had like a cold, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when the day that it's the worst and you're so stuffy everywhere and like, you know, nothing's fun. Like you don't want to watch a movie, you don't want to eat, you don't like, you're just kind of staring into space and you're like kind of brain dead. That is brain fog without the congestion. So people can get into car accidents. You have poor brain to hand dexterity. So messy handwriting, you're athletic, but suddenly you're tripping all over everything and knocking into stuff because it affects all of that. And I can get into the details of why these symptoms occur. Any sexual issues, of course, anything related to sex hormones. So you lose your sex drive or you have issues there. Again, like unnecessary bleeding, you know, cysts, things like this, fibroids, all that kind of stuff gynecologically. And aside from like hair falling out, dry, cracked skin, issues with constipation. Constipation is horrific to the point where like not even laxatives can do it. And why does all this happen? So like, why are all these like horrible symptoms there? And here's why. The main hormone, the thyroid hormone that keeps you alive, that keeps your brain working, is called T3. And when you're hypothyroid, meaning underactive, you have lower amounts of this. And that is literally related to how we feel. So when you have low T3, everything goes slow, sluggish, right? So you can't really burn fat, you gain fat, right? T3 is literally a fat burning hormone. So not nowadays, but back in the day, if I were to Google T3, which is the biologically active thyroid hormone, what would come up would be like thousands of bodybuilding websites. And you're like, what is this about? And I looked into it because I was like, why do I keep getting bodybuilding websites? It's because T3 is such a potent fat burner that these mofos, before like 2 weeks before a competition or whatever month before a competition, when they want to burn as much fat as humanly possible, they do a really dumb thing and they take a bunch of T3 and they override and shut down their thyroid gland. Now they have to offset it with some other stuff because too much T3 can be catabolic, and they do this whole dance. It's terrible. Never suggested, but it just goes to show you what an important and almost the most essential fat burning hormone we have. So when you don't have it, you keep gaining weight, you're exercising, you're doing all the things, you keep gaining weight. And then you don't have any of this energy hormone to do all the things I already mentioned. So now your adrenals are taking over and they're getting exhausted, and it pumps out cortisol and adrenaline. And so now you got a fat tire around your waist and you have adrenal fatigue, and it all leads to all of these horrible symptoms. You know, adrenal fatigue is often associated with sensitivity to light, sound, and smells. A sense of overwhelm, meaning like if you just had 3 errands to run that day, it would want to make you cry because it's so overwhelming. You know what I mean? Like you can't multitask. It might take you 2-3 hours to even get out of bed. You have no energy. You could be passing out. You could be dizzy. And again, a lot of cognitive issues. So people often will quit their jobs because they were an accountant and now they can't remember numbers or calculate things right. And they're afraid of getting fired. And people do get fired from their jobs because they're not performing. And so, you know, it has lots of horrible other ramifications other than just the physical stuff you're feeling. You know, can ruin relationships. You're the party pooper. You don't want to go out. And meanwhile, you're going to hundreds of doctors and they're saying your thyroid's fine because they didn't test it right. And so now your family thinks you're a hypochondriac. And, you know, it causes relationship issues, but it literally can riddle you with over 30, 40 symptoms. And I'll mention a couple of others like restless legs or heavy legs, the feeling of like when you're walking up steps and you only know it if you're out there and you're hearing it because you would go, oh my God, that's me. Where like every step you take, it feels like you're carrying a cement brick. This really weird sensation. So again, the thyroid is the master gland, and it is responsible for pumping out this hormone that's very important to all of the things we just talked about. If you don't have it, then everything breaks down. And then what happens is the uninformed doctor does a nice patchwork on you. Like they're just trying to patch symptoms without ever getting to the root. So and also depression is a part of this because we have more receptors in our brain for T3 than anywhere else, which absolutely has to do with neurotransmitters and your state of happiness. And so you go to the doctor and you're depressed depressed because the doctor said your thyroid was fine. It's not. You're depressed. You go to the doctor, they give you Prozac, and it'll work for 3 months maybe, but then it won't, because again, you never got to the root of the problem. So no one should ever go on a statin, antidepressant, or anything else, because again, your lipid panel is going to look terrible when you're hypothyroid. And then the doctor's going to go, oh no, you need to stop eating fat, or you need a statin. No, you need to correct the thyroid. Then, because again, you don't have enough fat burning T3. So of course it's going to get stagnant and your lipid panel is going to look horrible. You have high blood pressure. Don't take one of those pills until you have ruled out the thyroid. Someone wants to give you. So basically anything, and it's not me placing this importance on the thyroid. It is literally just the master gland of the human body. So every single doctor should be ruling this out before doing anything about anything, because one of these things could be a domino effect from something I mentioned. So I hope all that makes sense, but I'm happy to clear up or clarify anything.
Yeah, I mean, and I really don't hear many people talking about this. I know so many people who are like, oh, my testosterone is low, I'm going to go get TRT. They don't look into anything regarding the thyroid. You can now get a prescription online, I think, for testosterone replacement, and all, and so many people are just going and doing that, right? The symptom rather than addressing the root cause of the problem. So let me ask you this: is this mostly a genetic hereditary thing? Is it mostly caused by lifestyle choices and food and stuff like that? And if so, what are like the biggest mistakes? How do you, if someone wanted to wreck their thyroid, what would they do?
Go take a walk through Chernobyl. Okay, so anything, right? That's why they use iodine. Iodine affects the thyroid. There's a lot of thyroid cancer situations that happen over there. So yes, anything like, so don't be near nuclear waste sites. Okay, I mean, most people are not doing walking tours of Chernobyl, and we're not really worried about that happening. Okay, so first of all, 200 million people in the world have it, 200 million plus, 25 plus million Americans, and 60% are undiagnosed. And then aside from the people that are undiagnosed, a lot of the people, even on thyroid hormone replacement, are not being treated right. So this happens a lot. Someone goes to the doctor identifies a thyroid problem, but they don't take the full panel and they don't fully know what's up. So they give a standard or like 1950s based treatment of a certain thyroid hormone to the patient. And then the patient isn't doing well. And the doctor goes, well, your thyroid's fine, but it's not being treated properly. So there's
that would just be like, there's a common blood. So usually when you get a blood test, you do get T3 as one of the markers along with your other testosterone and stuff.
Look,
right?
I'll rattle it off right now because I don't want anyone to have to go buy my book to get this information, but I do have a free thyroid guide on my website, everyone. You can go to elleruss.com, and I also have a 2-hour free thyroid masterclass that comes with that free thyroid guide. And in that guide, it'll tell you exactly what the test to get, how to try to find the right doctor, what questions to ask their office to suss out if they know what they're talking about. I mean, that is just free for everybody. But for right now,
and just for everyone listening, if you didn't see the show notes or anything, Elle Russ, Elle is spelled ELLERUSS.com is where you can get that.
Great. Yeah. And you could just go to free stuff and you'll see free thyroid masterclass. And within there is a free thyroid guide, or you could just do the free thyroid guide. Either way, I'll just list the 6 main tests. And these are the tests you get to go, do I have a thyroid issue? Now, there might be further investigation and other tests you would take after this, but let's just say you're like, do I or do I not? These are the 6 tests you need. You need TSH, that stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. You need free T3, not total T3, not T3 uptake, free T3.
Now that's different from free testosterone, right?
Yes.
Or that's
yes.
okay.
No,
so
that's
the
free
testosterone and
this
free
is free
testosterone.
T3. T3 is the thyroid hormone. So totally different. So TSH, free T3, free T4, and then reverse T3. And then you always want to rule out 2 antibodies for the autoimmune form of hypothyroidism. And I'll get to answering your question about what causes this, why does this happen? And those 2 antibody tests, and this is why I mention this, is because often doctors will only test one and not the other. You could be positive for both or positive for one and not the other. And it is an important thing to rule out because there are other modes of treatment and things that can be done if you have Hashimoto's. So those 2 antibodies are, one is called TPO antibody, that stands for thyroid peroxidase, and the other is TG antibody, and that stands for thyroglobulin. So free T3, free T4, TSH, reverse T3, TPO antibody, TG antibody. Now,
And now most of those are not just on your generic, like I've gotten a blood test from like insidetracker.com. And I think I saw T3 on there, but I don't think I saw any of the other ones you
I
mentioned.
doubt it. You probably saw a TSH. So this is the
Okay.
bane of people's existence. And this is where the problem is. Most uninformed doctors. So I can almost guarantee, like if someone said, oh, my doctor tested my thyroid, he said it was fine. By the way, 99.999% it's not. And I go, I don't believe it. I'd like to see the test. And before I even say that, I go, I'll bet you $1 million that they only tested this or this and this. And it's always true.
So they're just doing T3 and they're like, oh, you got
they're
low.
just doing TSH. They're just doing
TSH.
TSH.
Okay.
Now, I'm happy to explain the whole thyroid feedback loop to you, but again, I don't know how much we went to get into the weeds on it. So anyway, if you have a doctor and if you're out there and you're on thyroid hormone and you don't feel absolutely phenomenal in life, then I would like you to go back and look. And did your doctor only test TSH and T4? Because if they did, you are dealing with an uninformed doctor that actually has no idea how to treat you. And that is the case. Now, people will hear an interview like this, and then I'll get emails that'll be like, oh my God, for 10 years, my endocrinologist. That's right. And you wonder in your head, how is that possible? They're a specialist. They went to extra school. They're an expert in the endo. No, they're not. They are indoctrinated into a belief system from like 40-year-old protocols that no one's practicing anymore. And so they just don't understand. So you need to get with doctors that do. And those doctors are usually the anti-aging doctors, the doctor of osteopathic medicine, integrative physicians, functional medicine doctors. These are people that almost always don't take insurance. They're not going to be dictated by time or someone else telling them what to do. And they're taking the time to deep dive. Now, not all functional medicine doctors are worth their weight. Not all integrative physicians. You're not going to hit a win every time. But they are more likely. So I personally would never go to an endocrinologist for my thyroid problem, ever. I also would never go to an endocrinologist for a type 2 diabetes problem, ever. So again, it's really, and here's the thing, the sad part is that patients are uninformed, right? So that's why people are suffering. I get emails from people that are like, I've been struggling for 10 years with my thyroid problem. And let me just say this very declaratively. There are only 2 reasons why anyone suffers for years. Number 1, you're dealing with an uninformed doctor that's clueless. 2, you're uninformed. You don't get it. You don't understand it. It's one or both. That's it. This is the thing that's crazy about this, Talora, is this is one of the easily fixable situations out there. That's why it's so crazy. It's not complicated. That's why someone with a philosophy degree completely understand it and be able to go. So again, it's just, and you hear people and they'll email you, go, I think my case is too much. I'm probably a lost cause. And then you go, yeah, but who have you been talking to and listening to? And then you ask them a few questions about thyroid. They don't even know. But here's the thing. They get to that. They hit their rock bottom. They find my interviews somehow. And then they realize, oh, shoot, I guess I do have to learn it. That was my mistake. Now, I'm going to give myself credit because back, 19 years ago when I was dealing with this, there was really no podcasts. There was no YouTubes. There was no paleo. There was nothing for me to go find out this information. I found a random group of thyroid patients on a Yahoo group that helped me learn a few things. And then I was kind of on my own. Nowadays, there's no excuse. I have 100 interviews out there, right? I've got books. There's people talking about this for free. There is no shortage of information. So the thing that's terrible is when you're suffering like this and your brain is literally not working. You cannot think, you're depressed, you have a general malaise for life. You don't have the motivation and the wherewithal sometimes to even help yourself, even though you're suffering, and it's a lot. And so this is just a really scary, lonely place to be. And it's hard when you go to 5, 10 doctors. And again, that's the person who I've been struggling for 10 years. You've only been struggling because you haven't learned it yet, which is where I come in. And the sort of patient advocacy and level of education that I'm offering is because if you have this problem, you have to know about it, because maybe your great doctor now retires. Then what are you going to do? If I have a great doctor now, the doctor on my first book, The Paleo Thyroid Solution, and I'll bounce some thyroid stuff off of him, but I know how to treat my own thyroid. If he, God forbid, fell off the face of the earth tomorrow, I'd be okay because I know how to do it. I know exactly how to do it. I could have 15 doctors tell me the wrong thing and it wouldn't matter because I would literally know how to dose and test and completely assess myself as my own doctor, which essentially people don't want to do. You want to just go, please help me, please fix this. But this is one of those subjects that they don't know how to fix. The same. Okay, so let's talk about, is it genetic? Is it not necessarily? This is a result of our soil being depleted of selenium, which is an important conversion of thyroid hormones nutrient. This is just terrible lifestyle. If you have Hashimoto's, then gluten particularly is going to, for almost any autoimmune disorder, okay, but particularly for thyroid Hashimoto's. So Hashimoto's is hypothyroidism, meaning underactive, all of the things I talked about. It's just that it's an immune form. So your immune system makes a mistake when you have Hashimoto's and it starts to try to murder and attack your thyroid gland. So when you have MS, your immune system makes a mistake and it starts to attack the myelin sheath around the nerves. When you have rheumatoid arthritis, your immune system makes a mistake and it starts to attack the joints. And okay, so that's how autoimmune situations work. We know for sure that gluten, because gluten has a component that looks like thyroid tissue to the mistaken immune system. It's like there's molecular mimicry going on there. So when gluten enters the body, it'll start to attack and then you have antibodies go up. So I have standard hypothyroidism, meaning I do not have an autoimmune form of hypothyroidism. The only other autoimmune form of thyroid issues is called Graves' disease. That's hyperthyroidism, overactive. That's very dangerous because you can have a heart attack and die because it's responsible for your heart rate. So it pumps out too much. The person feels like, oh my God, my heart rate's like 160 and I just woke up. Very, very dangerous. They're often given beta blockers or something like that. There's other things to solve that. Still a paleo primal ancestral dietary lifestyle is positive for that. If Graves goes in a direction that cannot be controlled, what they do is they radioactive iodine your thyroid. They basically kill it because it's safer. So they kind of kill your thyroid. And now you're right where I am, which is now you have hypothyroidism and you're probably going to go on thyroid hormone replacement. If you had thyroid cancer, best cancer to have. Literally the best. If you catch it, you just take it out. You just remove the gland or half the gland or whatever, but now you're in the same boat. Now you're going to need thyroid hormone replacement. So Graves' disease, the hyper is very rare. Okay. I mean, rarer.
I heard Missy Elliott, the famous singer. I heard, and then I was like, what happened to her? And then I saw that she had Graves' disease, and that's why she completely stopped everything that she was doing right in the peak prime of her career. Yeah. I
was going to bring her up. So so here's the thing. So when they have too much T3, so then people go, ooh, fat burner. Yeah. I would love to be skinny and never be able to gain weight and poop all the time, which is what happens when you're hyper. But here's the thing. That's actually a miscalculation of how it really works. That might be temporary, that, oh my God, I'm so skinny, I can't gain weight, I'm pooping all the time. But yeah, you're going to have thyroid eye disease, you're going to have bug eyes and some issues there. And then also your heart rate, you're sweaty, you're clammy, you're anxious. It doesn't feel good to be hyper. And I know this because I've been on too much medication before where I know what hyperthyroidism feels like. Here's the problem. People think, oh yeah, skinny, I'll just take a bunch of T3 and burn. Guess what? It'll backfire on you because we are Goldilocks. And so Missy Elliott's a perfect example because she was overweight, which doesn't seem to equate with this fat burning T3. Back in the day, she was really big. Here's why. It might be the case at first with hyperthyroidism, but then it makes you hypermetabolic. It increases your appetite when you have excess T3, right? It's affecting cortisol and blood glucose in a bad way. And then it kind of backfires on you and you can gain a lot of weight and become bloated. So
yeah, well, I was just talking about this with someone else on a podcast actually about how the Biggest Loser, when they did this crazy calorie restriction and now most of them gained it back and destroyed their metabolism.
That's right.
And everything, right?
Well, and here's the thing, actually the best show to watch is one of my colleagues in the industry, Abel James. He wrote a book called The Wild Diet. He has Fat Burning Man podcast. He was on a show called My Diet is Better Than Yours, okay, on ABC. And here's the thing, his guy actually won because his guy lost the most percentage of body fat. That is how those competitions should be judged. You can take laxatives, starve yourself of water, and get on a scale. Look, you could take a measurement pre-bowel movement and post, and you'll see a difference. Like, it's not about the weight. So when people are like, oh, I gained or lost 5 pounds, I go, what? You shouldn't even be looking at weight. You should get a scale that measures your percentage of body fat. That is how you do it, because you could have two people that weigh 180, one looks fat, one looks ripped. The only difference is the percentage of body fat. So those shows are awful because they are doing the wrong paradigm to push people, and it's not, and you don't have success with it because it's not satiating, because it's not ancestral. And so his guy on the show, what I loved about it is that even though his guy technically came in second, though he should have won because he dropped the most percentage of body fat versus quote weight, the guy couldn't really even move because he had like a neck injury and neck stuff. So like the guy couldn't even really exercise. So Abel was able to pretty much show like, you can do this just through diet.
Wow.
And these other people are running and stressing and crying. And, you know, his guy was like, what? I get to eat bacon burgers? And so if anyone is curious, I think you can watch them all for free. But that is probably the best example of what you're talking about, the difference between a paleo primal sort of paradigm and then this sugar burning, carbohydrate dependent paradigm on these shows where they're trying to go for the number on the scale, not the percentage of body fat.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to get into a little bit about, like what are the biggest mistakes people are making, and what are some of the easy steps they could take if they think, obviously, if someone really thinks they have an issue here, 100%, they should go to your website, download your materials, contact you, really learn as much as possible about this. What about for people that maybe, like you said, there's 200 million people around the world. So I imagine there's, millions and millions of people that maybe don't have an extreme case, but it's affecting their life. They don't have mental energy. Like you said, they have brain fog, there's lack of energy. What are some of the simple, like, again, what are the biggest mistakes and some of the simple solutions?
Okay, so I do suggest a paleo primal ancestral paradigm in terms of diet. Does that mean you need to eat red meat? No, you could do it in a pescatarian or egg way.
Sure.
So what does that mean? My God, just go look up, paleo food lists, okay? Or go read a book on paleo primal, or go to Mark's Daily Apple, Mark Sisson's blog. You can learn all this stuff for free. I'm not saying anyone needs to go and spend money on this. You could just watch interviews of paleo experts and figure it out. Why? Because it removes a lot of offensive foods such as beans, grains, legumes, and dairy, okay? And so that right there is a great cleanup. And I do say focus on protein and produce, like a lot of my friends do. So we can start with like, what are you putting in your mouth to anus? This is your job. Nobody can help you with that. Okay. So that no one's force feeding you. Right.
Yeah.
So
and I had someone that I met through some business thing, and he said, oh yeah, I have Hashimoto's, and he was always complaining about the Hashimoto's. And then we went out to eat and he was eating a plate of French fries. And I'm thinking to myself, come on, man, like, it's like one of those things like,
well, how badly do you want it? Because
exactly.
I have a friend's father who's lost their fourth toe now to type 2 diabetes. So they'll get type 2, they'll go get a toe removed, then they'll get keto and they'll do it, and their blood glucose will be leveled, and then they go off the rails and now they've lost another toe. I don't know. What do you tell these people? At what point, where do they stop? The leg, the thing, this is an addiction. Okay. Like these are addictions almost. So yes, I mean,
the seed oils, the gluten, the common stuff that we all know about: no gluten, seed oils, processed sugar, processed foods. Once you eliminate that, which is essentially what paleo is, eliminating the grains and the beans, that's you're 90% of the way there.
You're 90% of the way there. Yeah, and then, okay, so what else? Like, hey, if you think like, maybe you have a problem, or maybe you even get tested and you're like, well, it's not horrible, but it looks a little subpar. Hey, look, there's lots of great thyroid support formulas out there. I mean, I think Pure Encapsulations has a great thyroid support complex that you can take. You can make sure you're getting some extra selenium, like 200 micrograms extra a day if it's not already in your multi. Look, just taking a good multi with some extra selenium and some vitamin D and K2 and like a good thyroid support complex for, a couple months, like, hey, maybe that is all someone needs really, other than adjusting the diet. And then sometimes not. So sometimes this stuff is genetic.
With peak performance, we have actually an organic iodine that comes from organic kelp. Is that something? And we sell a decent amount of that. Is iodine something that's specifically for thyroid?
Iodine is very related to thyroid, and it's
Yeah.
often in most of the thyroid support formulas. When you're doing it in the kelp, you're talking micrograms. Sometimes, depending on a deficiency, people need milligrams. But
Gotcha.
the mistake that's made is that someone has a thyroid problem. They look it up online, they see iodine's related, and they go get out the very strong Lugol's iodine or this really strong stuff, and they can overdo it. And that's not a good thing either.
Right.
So look, you can test for some deficiencies, you can add it to it, but yes, you can get some of that into your life, eat seed vegetables and other stuff iodine is an important nutrient. So is selenium, of course, having your iron and B12. So listen, I have a friend who's a pescatarian, a male, he's 33, and he eats very well, very healthy, lots of greens and stuff. And he got blood work recently, and his ferritin, his iron storage and the iron was subpar. And I said, I'm not suggesting that you ever eat meat, but when's the last time you ate meat? And he was like, I don't know, 14 years ago. And I go, well, here's a perfect example of when you make a decision to go against what your DNA expects of you, which is to eat animals. That's fine. I'm not judging that. That's a choice. But that choice comes with consequences. And so if you don't pay attention to that, right, you need B12, you need amino acids, and you need iron. And he's not a menstruating female, he's a male. So it even happened to him. And he just was like, oh my God, like I had never thought about this, because what everyone thinks pescatarians are so healthy. There is a reason we are designed to eat meat. So again, you don't have to eat meat, but if you're making that choice, then you have to, you know what I mean, pad and account for some of the things that could happen. So B12, right, is a problem with vegans and vegetarians. So yes, iron, B12, selenium, iodine. I mean, look, all of the proper nutrients possible. However, if you're hypothyroid, and by the way, back to the genetic question. So some people who have Hashimoto's, the autoimmune form, they might have other people in their family who have autoimmune disorders. Do you know what I'm saying? Because autoimmune disorders can run in. So maybe the parent has type 1 diabetes, which is the autoimmune form, not the form you eat yourself into.
Right.
Then they might have Hashimoto's, or someone has rheumatoid arthritis and they might have celiac, or, so you can see that. And then sometimes it just like is what it is, man. It's like, could you work yourself into it? Yes. If you are over exercising and under eating and doing that over dieting thing, you will cause a thyroid problem. Absolutely. So that's what we call euthyroid 6 syndrome. And so again, if you're not satiated, you're eating a low fat, low carb, whatever you're trying to like overworking out, yes, that could give you a thyroid problem. So lifestyle choices can give you a thyroid problem. Dietary choices can give you a thyroid problem. Sometimes it is just what it is. Do you know what I mean? And there's no way to determine what ignited it. There are people that get on thyroid hormone replacement, get to a great baseline, solve some other things, optimize themselves, and then they're able to get off of them. You know what I mean? So it's not always a permanent thing. Thyroid hormone replacement is not like medications. It is technically a medication, but everyone's always like, I don't want to be on medicine. And you're like, it's not here's the thing. Like testosterone or like hormone therapy, you're basically giving yourself what your body doesn't have and needs. When you're talking about like the birth control pill or some drug you see on an advertisement on the nightly news, those usually come with a laundry list of side effects, because what they do is they're manipulating your body into doing something it shouldn't be doing in the first place. And by the way, I have no ethical or moral objections to the birth control pill, but it's horrible. It's just horrible for women. I was on it. That can rob you of your thyroid. It robs you of your testosterone. It's doing something your body is not meant to be doing. And that is why it comes with a laundry list of side effects. Thyroid hormones, not really a lot of side effects, unless you like overdid it crazy. And not a lot of people are abusing thyroid hormones other than these bodybuilders I told you about. So and not everyone needs thyroid hormone replacement. Again, sometimes it's like, you had a baby, you've been eating a bunch of gluten, maybe, look, even when you have Hashimoto's. So when Hashimoto shows up, there's antibodies. And so I'm just going to give one example and talk about the TPO antibody. So in the States, the range is often like 10 to 34. Let's just say it's 0 to 34. And let's say someone's at a 14, they might still be able to feel it. They don't need to go on thyroid hormone replacement. But usually when people have something that shows up in a positive range, they're meaning indicating an autoimmune response, I'll ask them, I'll be like, just be honest, have you been eating like gluten? And usually they're like, oh my God, I've been eating pizza and a bunch. And you're like, all right, great. Just stop that for a while, because if you keep going, you're going to have to go on thyroid hormone replacement because you're eating the gluten. The immune system is making a mistake and trying to murder your thyroid gland.
Yep.
Right? You get the whole thing. So, and this has happened many times where they'll call me back in 3 weeks and go, my brain is back. I feel amazing. And you're like, yeah. So hi, you have Hashimoto's and you can keep it at bay likely, but diet and lifestyle is what you need to do that. Now, there are some people where diet and lifestyle can't do it and they have to go on thyroid hormone replacement. But again, there are all sorts of ways to fix this. And my book and my work is not about go on thyroid hormone replacement. I mean, sometimes there's people that I work with that I go, I don't think you need thyroid hormone. Like, this is not that, or you just need to deal with the antibodies in this way and maybe attack it from this situation first. I mean, the answer is not always thyroid hormone replacement, but if it is, there's nothing wrong with that. And that doesn't have to be the rest of your life. But if it is, that's okay too. There's plenty of people who've had multiple children. You live a normal life. It just, thyroid hormone replacement that I take every day makes me normal, like all of you who don't have thyroid problems. That's all. If I eat too much garbage, I'll get fat. If I have the same metabolism as any normal human being out there because I'm optimized on thyroid hormone replacement. And so again, there are so many ways to fix this, attack it, go about it, but nobody should ever be saying that they're still suffering for years on end. That literally is just indicative of ignorance. And I don't even mean it in a judgy way, just uninformed ignorance on the part of you or your doctor or both.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. This has been really eye-opening. I can't imagine how many people out there are undiagnosed or misdiagnosed, like 60%, we just spoke about.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. I mean,
and thyroid problems are on the rise, guys. I mean, like, but by the way, it's disproportionately affects women. Okay. So men can be discounted for it. So yes, like 1 in 8 women will get a thyroid problem in their lifetime. So it's something very important, especially if you are attempting to get pregnant. Please do not. You don't want to look, the people that I've spoken to has had multiple miscarriages. You don't want to have to go through that if you don't have to. Now, that's not to say that even if your thyroid's perfect, you're not going to have a miscarriage, but it's like, do your best to prevent yourself from having that kind of situation that nobody would want. Make sure, because you really, again, and here's why, because it's the master gland that produces and regulates your sex hormones. So if you don't make enough progesterone to make the lining to keep the baby in there, right, all of these things. And so please rule it out. Rule it out before you take a statin. Rule the thyroid out before you go on any type of antidepressant kind of stuff. And if you are depressed and have lost your lust for life, check your thyroid, man. I mean, it is, it's so there. Hypothyroidism gives you a general malaise. Like, you will give up on your dreams. You'll kind of start to ask, like, it's not even like a suicidal immediate depression, but it can be like a, what's it all for anyway? Like, you've literally just lost your lust for passion. What does it all mean? And you just like don't care and you're feeling bored in life. You're a party pooper. You don't have energy. If you're taking naps every day to function, that is an indication. And again, anything hormone related. So this is where, like I told you the story about this 25-year-old who had low testosterone and the doctor just gave him testosterone, which turned out he had a horrible thyroid problem. So we got him off the testosterone, fixed the thyroid problem. His testosterone came right back in. So before, if you're a woman out there, now when you're menopause, perimenopause, that's different. You're probably going to need thyroid, other sexual hormone replacement. But in general, if you have a quote hormonal imbalance, you don't patchwork it with hormones. You rule the thyroid out first, because if you correct this, it all comes back in. This is the conductor of the symphony.
Wow. This has been really great. And I definitely want people to please tell everyone where they can learn more from you, find your resources. Also, with regards to the thyroid tests that you mentioned, is there a way that if they go through your website and learn your materials, then then they can order these tests directly themselves or find a doctor that orders them, or through,
On
or
my
can they
free
send them to
thyroid
you?
guide, yeah,
Yeah.
so here's the thing. Some states in the United States do not allow you to test your own blood. I live in California. I can test my own blood whenever I want. It's a few East Coast states like New Jersey and New York. They don't allow you to do it. There are services like that, private MD labs, direct labs. There's even Let's Get Checked. You can do a home prick test. It's not a comprehensive thyroid test, though. I'm going to have to put that nuance there. So all of that is in my free thyroid guide. And again,
Right.
elleruss.com, ELLERUSS. Not only do I have a free 2-hour thyroid masterclass of me explaining so much more than I explained here, like all the details, plus the guide, it's free. I also have the ultimate thyroid course. This is for medical doctors, practitioners, patients, people who are
Oh,
like,
great.
I need to learn this. And I just came out with that this year. It is literally everything I know about it. And it is a semester of college worth of information. It is 23 original hours, 29 hours, 17 modules, doctors, experts, success stories. But what I do tell you, if you're suffering with thyroid, at least go to my website, click on the courses and click on the thyroid course, because on the course page, like the sales page of telling you what this course is, there are amazing testimonials from people. Like you might even fix your thyroid problem by listening to Kara's story or listening to Carrie's story or Debbie's story. So there's so much information just on, like, without you even buying the course. But if you do, it's incredibly priced, and it is, again, something that you'll have forever, because you need to learn this stuff, particularly if you're in the dark and you can't find a good doctor. So there's all sorts of resources on my website. And of course, tons of interviews. You can Google me and watch them over. Sometimes it might take people a few times to watch some things, but yeah, they're all right there. And just know that, just don't give up and hang in there and know that this is actually solvable. I'm not just saying that to say it. I suffered for 7 years of my life due to this garbage. And I could have fixed it in 3 or 4 months. So, that is a real, sometimes I still am like, man, I wish I could get those years of my 30s back. So don't waste any more time, people. This is solvable. It really is. And there's no thyroid problem too difficult. There just isn't. It's not such a thing.
Elle, thank you so much. I could see how passionate you are. I'm so happy that you're actually teaching other practitioners about this as well, because that's so needed. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom here with us today. This has been very eye-opening. I'm sure that many people who have this issue, maybe even undiagnosed, probably undiagnosed, and of hearing this interview now, this could be a life changer for them. So thank you for everything that you're doing, everything you're putting out there, and for sharing your wisdom here today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. And just a reminder, if you haven't yet tried any of our Peak Performance products, you get 20% off your first order. We have one of the largest selection of USDA certified organic superfood powders, as well as very high quality supplements. And you get 20% off your first order at buypeakperformance.com. That's www.buypeakperformance.com.